Recording. All right, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's get started. All right, so itt121. Just wanted to point out that's my contact information. Please feel free, at least over the next couple of weeks or a week and a half, if you want to text or email, please do that. Check into Cadley, and basically, if you're here today, I will count your participation for next week as well. So you don't really have to check in next week, those of you that are here. Of course, people that aren't here, when they show up late, well, as I said, I just need you to check in once, and I'll give you the participation for the week. All right. Okay, so what's due this week is this when things go wrong assignment, and as I said, is just basically a writing assignment. And what I'm concerned about with this assignment, well, let me just go over the description. So this course has shown you in a basic manner, basically what a well-managed system admin will do in a corporate infrastructure as far as maintenance and management. System admins include planning, configuration, maintenance, and all of that for the infrastructure. And the aim of the system admin basically is to keep the system alive, make sure you're taking care of issues, troubleshooting, all of that fun stuff. Having been a system admin for many years, well, it was one of my roles. Taking care of users, creating images for systems, just about everything. And those are the old days of IT where, we basically had to do everything anyway. So having a well-managed environment is pretty much, your job. So in the Bible, God indicated that man will have power over the birds, the animals, domestic and wild, and all the earth, in Genesis 1:26, and assigns to man the work to cultivate or develop it and guard, preserve, take care of it. So essentially in Genesis, it says that man has a responsibility to take care of the earth. So we want to apply that to our little corporate infrastructure and say, and essentially the whole premise of this assignment is that if something goes, wildly wrong, what type of perspective, what type of baseline do you use to correct the problem? And just from my own personal experiences, both, as a system admin, even in the Navy, generally when we had issues, especially during wartime, we were essentially told, get the job done, do whatever you need to do. And I will tell you that there were some pure unethical practices just to get things running. So we want to make sure that we're not supporting or emphasizing that type of behavior as far as taking care of your infrastructure. So we want to develop, improve, and cultivate harmoniously, without actually crossing the line of ethics and all that. So all that being said, basically what I want you to do is just review. You can provide a scenario or a case or an instance where something happens, and for example, your supervisor or someone is saying, well, we need this, we need our email server running yesterday. So you have to do what you need to do. So how would you approach taking care of that? Would you follow the regular troubleshooting steps, et cetera? Would you bypass some of the processes that you would use just to get the system running? So basically, it's just a very brief perspective from using ethics, using Christian worldview, as to how you would recover a problem within your infrastructure, whether it be networking, security, hardware, software. Just produce. You only need to produce like one scenario, and then just talk about what would you do in kind of an essay. As you know, the premise here in Loud Cloud says 250, 400 words. If you're very clear about your approach, and you can use even biblical references or whatever, then then I know that you're understanding what we're trying to accomplish with this assignment. So the whole idea is that yes, you're keeping your ethical approach um, to basically taking care of issues when they arise. And this is still a big issue in IT, just to let you know, because there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of competition. It's almost dog eat dog and all that. So, so what do you do? What is your approach? Are you ethically and morally minded, or do you just plow over everyone and everything? And it is simply uh, East. That's a big B. Sorry, distracted. Um, when in our industry, because there's so many ways to do things, there's so many approaches. Um, some individuals who just want to excel, and go to the ranks or whatever, will do whatever they can. So, any questions about that assignment?
No, sir. Not for me.
All good.
All good. Okay, so that's due Sunday. Just typical straightforward APA on your name, title page or header, whatever. Do your little paragraph, your college level writing, etc., and submit it. All right. I was going to briefly talk about management practices as we go into the last assignment. Well, you can see all my little transitions, which are distracting. I'll sum up basically the premise. System admin, which is essentially your responsibility, is it's your job to ensure that the environment is set up correctly, and all the information is passed on or disseminated to both sides, both the upper management and the rest of the company, the rest of the employees. It's 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 the one job where you have your hands in just about everything. But especially now, as you all know, everything is technology based, and everyone has a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone that they're tying into business processes, etc. So management practices, just at a very basic level, um, we're trying to ensure that you all know that, I mean, when you're managing these environment, which is one of the responsibilities of a system admin, you are responsible for things such as policies, processes, equipment, data, human resources, all of that. Um, you do need to have a very good idea of what's entailed there. There are high enterprises that will help you with actually management products. Um, for example, and all of you are pretty familiar with Active Directory. If you've dug into Active Directory at any degree, I mean, you can use that as a tool to manage all these processes, network, users, systems, computers, etc. So there's tons of tools out there. So, and obviously I will upload this lecture, but infrastructure management is a part of the system admin scenario. Some of the things that you're responsible for: reduce duplication of effort, ensure adherence to standards, enhance the flow of information throughout an information system. These are just so important. Promote adaptability, ensure interoperability among organizational and departmental entities. Oh, that's a big one, because no matter how much you think there's communication across, even in a small company, I mean, there's always these specific silos, and everyone's like, I don't understand what's going on. So it is the responsibility. IT professionals always, well, okay, I'll admit, in the old days, we didn't really care. We just let the chaos ensue at the upper levels, and we would just stay away from it. Well, we can't really do that anymore. So it's our jobs to ensure all these crazy employees, because that's what they are. They're all crazy. They understand what the technology is being used for. So, hence, I'm not going to go into the details of some of this. And so please review some of this. In Loud Cloud, it talks about automation and basically one of the keys of technology now is allowing some of these automated processes to run, virtual environments, user creation. Um, for example, in Active Directory, basically you can create an account and it will be disseminated through all those single sign-on scenarios, supposedly. So that's something that you would develop as a system admin, managing the environment. So yes, automation is very important. And the one thing that I would recommend as you all proceed throughout your IT education and into your profession, never stop learning. I mean, that there's all kinds of platforms, hardware, software, everything that you need to keep, digesting that information about. Okay, all that being said, the final assignment, which is due on the 26th, this is your final proposal, and very, very brief in a nutshell, you're going to take the previous proposals that you have written and combine those into one big final proposal. That's the whole idea. You should not have to rewrite a lot of aspects. You're just combining the aspects that you have built in your previous proposals. So, and there's I think there's 7. Yeah, we'll review them. So you start with a recommendation for server and workstation requirements, and that was like number 1. You look at storage options and recommendations, RAID, server configuration to fault tolerance. And then you go into server roles. I mean, for example, domain controller, DHCP, and then onto Active Directory and email services, including some type of authentication like LDAP. So you'll talk about that, and you should have a section on that. And then directory services analysis and recommendation, and all that is essentially how is your network structured? What's your topology? If you have several locations, how are you controlling that? We talked about that briefly, if you remember, but it's just an analysis of that directory services structure. Are you using Active Directory to control all of your systems and all of your users, things like that? And then Windows and Linux integration analysis. And I want to remind you, if it's not appropriate for you to have a Windows Linux integration, that's fine. But just to let you know, most, if not, I would say more than 90% of the infrastructures out there will have at least a web server running Apache. So, and that's truly a Linux Windows integration. And it's crazy now because it's so easy. You can integrate a Linux environment very simply into an Active Directory, including web services and email services. So, as we know, Linux is a. I have to pause here a little bit because, and if you go back 10, 15 years, it was not even a comparison between a Windows server environment and a Linux. Now, Microsoft has actually done pretty good on the server side, and the functionality is actually much higher than it used to be. So, yeah, I want you to talk about Windows and Linux. Excuse me, and then detailed user and group management recommendations. This is probably mostly centered around Active Directory. Yes, you can include that in your explanation. And then finally, and within the user group management, yes, you should talk about group policies and environment policies, etc. And then finally, I just want you to mention automation and rollout recommendations. We're not really covering this. I simply just want you to talk about it briefly. There's really no need to go into a lot of details on number 7, but just there's a couple things in Loud Cloud that you can reference. For example, in PowerShell, if you're a PowerShell person, basically you can write a script during your backup that will check users and check the logs and things like that to see if there's any issues with login, see if, review the audit policies, all those types of actions. You can automate those. So just Yeah, pull in an example of the usefulness of automation, and then just talk about that a little bit. All right. And then group policy, computer usage restrictions. So that this is the detailed section for group policy. A little late, but nice glasses. Yeah, I'm outside. So hence the glasses. I'm not trying to be really cool. All right. Whoops. Back. Number 9, security guidelines. So these all go into your both your group, your detail on your group policies and your audit firewall. And then number 10, basically your management practices. You can just talk about something very simple just compare it to what I just briefly went over as far as your responsibilities as a system admin. Please review the rubric. It's quite extensive. So that's always the best thing to review so you don't miss anything. And yes, and then you have to submit this to Lopes Right. All right, I know that's a handful. I will go over this again next week, and I will also post the recording of the lecture. Are there any questions? Now's your time to ask. I know you all have questions. You're all just being quiet. Okay. Anthony's using the chat. Next meeting. Well, as I stated earlier, this is our last formal meeting for the class, which is why I went over both assignments. I went over both the when things go wrong and the final proposal. I will be on Zoom on Friday and Monday and Wednesday. If you have any questions, if you have any lingering questions, but this is my last formal lecture. And if those of you that have shown that showed up for this lecture will get participation for next week. That's your bonus. So you don't have to worry about participation anymore for the class. You just have to finish the assignments. Is everyone awake? Yes, I'm behind these glasses.
Yeah, no, it all makes sense.
Yeah, no
Sure,
questions.
once we hit the ground, that's when the questions come up usually for me.
Okay. And yes, remember, we don't officially end until the 26th. So send me a private form, send me a text, whatever you like. If you have any questions, I'm okay with that. I mean, we don't really have a final exam in this class, but and we are all tasked not to make it so overwhelming that you really essentially lose track of finishing up the class. You're all doing very well. Just make sure you submit the remaining assignments. I'm not going to close out or zero out anything until after the 26th. So even if you're behind on assignments, don't worry about it. Everything will be due the 26th. So just get them done, hand them in. There won't be any late point deductions. So, but you're all doing good anyway. So I'm not worried about it. I know we don't have everyone here, but I know it's early and people are working and starting to establish your routine for the summer. So I know that everyone in this class I have been in contact with, so I'm not too worried about it. Any other questions?
Are you teaching any of the classes over the summer?
Well, we don't know yet, to be frank. The schedules are being jostled and right now I'm not, but I may, the second session.
Okay.
I'm not teaching at GCU. I'm actually teaching a class at ASU online, a database class. But that's different, I know. But other questions?
Do you recommend system administration or a database?
Sysadmin, because, well, how comfortable are you with SQL?
I've used SQL before, but not as not as comfortable as I should be, I guess.
Okay, so then you seem to be more comfortable with hardware, software, system administration. So from that premise, I would recommend database, because it's a loss. It's an art that's dying that shouldn't be dying.
Hmm.
So I would recommend that if you're not comfortable with SQL and you can't dig into queries and all that, which you'll run into, and even in programming languages, then it'll be problematic. And it is kind of an issue in our field right now. Yeah, everyone's learning, languages, Python, Java, and all that, and they have no idea when they run into that SQL or NoSQL what it does, and that's moving the data. So.
Yeah, it was my first 2 years in the Navy is when I learned that. So that was a little while ago.
While ago. And that's interesting too, because what's happened, SQL's been around a long time, but it's still the most effective way to move data. And everything's controlled by data now. And if you look at what's happening with IoTs, this is all data movement. And there's all these scripts being written, and everyone understands the scripts, but they don't understand how the data is being moved or managed or used. Business
Right.
intelligence, analytics, all of that. That's all data driven.
I think I'll stick with sysad.
All right. It's easier. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, folks, anything else? I do want to thank you all for everyone was, this class was interesting. Even the end of it was a little challenging, but you've all done very well. And I just want to encourage you just to complete the process. It's always a little spiel that we say, don't drop the ball now, just finish the class strong. And, especially since you're all lounging around at home, including me. So, but we're all being safe and healthy, correct?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have. I'll post this recording in LoudCloud a little later. If you have any questions, just contact me. I mean, all I do is monitor email, text, and the forums in LoudCloud. And the quickest way, if you want, the quickest response, or the quickest way to get a response is is emails, because I definitely will respond there. Private forums are relatively quick, but emails are the fastest. So. All right. Well, it was great to see you all. Please take care, and remember the When Things Go Wrong assignment is due this Sunday, and the final proposal is due next Sunday. And we will be all done. On to the next adventure. All right. So that being
Thank you very
said,
much.
yes, thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Again, have a great summer.
You too. And if you need anything, just contact me. I will be on Zoom on Friday and Monday and Wednesday. If you want to join me, that's fine. I'll just sit out and work on my tan. All right, y'all. Take care. See ya.
Have a good one.
You
See
too.
ya.